I was wondering what attracted you to making short films in particular?
I mean, initially it was, I don't think without video like I ever would have made any if it wasn't for video cameras. It was that thing that you could take a camera away and I could afford to buy a tape myself and shoot with my friends, and I didn't want anything funded when I started, and what attracted me was that you could go away and make something, and if it was awful you didn't kind of have to show it to anyone, no one had paid for it, so I could make mistakes, you know. Initially it was that thing that, you know, you could make things and it wasn't like it was meant to go on television, they were just for myself initially. What most filmmakers do, I think, is they make enough shorts until they get to the point they've made a feature and then they just toss them to one side. But from my point of view, it's like that. I always thought that with bands, you know, the new bands that come out, they do a great first album because they've probably been on the road for 10 years, you know, struggling to get. They've got all that great material, and then the record company says to them, "We want another one by next year," and then it's shit because nothing's changed in between. So I've carried on making shorts because it's a chance for me to, without any pressure, to try new characters, and I might just, like the ones that Paddy were in those films were all done in a few hours, shot in a few hours in a day, and I've made about 72, 73 shorts since I started in '94, and so from my point of view I'll never put them down because it's a chance to kind of, the one thing I learned at college when they give us a sketchbook in the art class was you could see a final piece of work and then you looked in your sketchbook and you worked your way back and you saw how it all came about, and that's why I stick with them, and I think why I still like it.
The characters in the film, I think it's really interesting because one, you work so closely with Paddy across the whole range of things, and so it's hard to perhaps put apart when you and him seem to have something going on together there, but also the fact that there's kind of a theme building up between not just the shorts but other features as well, whereby you have these characters who take themselves like really seriously, don't they? And I don't know what if that, I mean, it's obviously how it's come about, I suppose. Is there anything that you think that you, I mean, is it intentional that they're so similar?
I think it's just, I'd always had a problem with working class people. You know, it's like that, the classic thing is EastEnders when they have a gypsy family, they turn up in a barrel top wagon, you know, that gypsies haven't been riding around in for 70 years, you know, it's like the idea of a gypsy with a horse tied up at the back. And for me it was the same in films. People like Mike Leigh, I'm not saying he hasn't made some good films, but when he draws his actors, he has no experience, no working class life experience at all. And because Paddy's been for an audition, and he basically gets you to come and bring everything, and you have to give him everything for 6 months, and you might end up in the film for a minute, and that's all cool, but basically he gets credit for was writing the stories. And so I think I personally thought that a lot of working class characters were really over the top and not celebrated, you know what I mean? It was like, I had this ambition, I'd grown up with these people, I'd been thieving, I'd robbed, fought, I'd done all of these, and I'd seen it all firsthand, and so for me I thought there was a space in the market for me because I cared about the people, you know, and I think no matter how dark, and like my new film is incredibly dark, but I still care about even the darkest person, because when you're inside it, someone that's viewed from the outside as just a foul bastard that you actually got to know, everyone's kind of got a side, and that's the thing, that the reason I kind of got into filmmaking was because I was looking at Mike Leigh's work and just thinking, you're not from there, man, it's just not real. And I thought, you know, that no one was doing that, so that's really what I think, what if you're from somewhere, and it's not about being working class, it's about, for me, it was you know, it was easy for me at the beginning because I've got all these characters around me, and when I was at college, kids were going, "Oh, we're going to make it's like a Reservoir Dogs meets Star Wars," you know, and it was doomed to fail because you got like 75 quid to make it. Whereas I'd go off and I'd video someone like Bartley. I'd look to people around me, so there's this kind of documentary edge that developed over with my films, because I looked at, I think it doesn't matter which class you're from, everyone's got characters around them or friends around them, it's much more comfortable, rather than, because I know so many people who thought they want to be filmmakers, and they get there on the day and they kind of hire crew in, people they don't know, and although the camera work might be a little bit more technically better, they freeze up on the day because they're really out of the depth, you know. And what I did was develop with a core of friends and talk to them about the people I knew, and you know, and kind of and develop it together. So when I was on set, it was no different than when we were hanging around in a front room together. and it was really comfortable. So that's kind of my philosophy's always been that I didn't think, you know, because I went and failed at some of the things, I thought I wanted to be like acting, and I was told you can't do it this way and you can't do it that way. When you actually find you can do it, and I know how to make people comfortable on set, and I understand actors because I've been in that position and I've frozen up in plays, and you know, it's everyone's capable of acting, every single person, because we all do it every day. And the secret is when someone puts a camera on your face and says go, and doesn't give you any, you just like, you know, it's frightening. Whereas if you can make people comfortable, so get used to improvising without cameras and then just gradually bring things in, that's how I've always done it, you know.
Yeah, highlighting two really good pieces of advice there. Make films about people that you know and things that you know about,
Definitely.
as opposed to things that you like watching, for example, like gangsters or whatever. And secondly, to set an environment up in which you're really comfortable.
Definitely, yeah. And I think it's like that thing of meeting of minds with someone like Paddy. We've got a special relationship that just something from when we were first at college, that thing, we were getting separated when we were 18 on trips and that, you know, we were like 5-year-olds, and they were making him sit at the front because they couldn't cope with us, you know, they just didn't know what to do with us. And if you look at what we've become, it makes me really angry that they couldn't see, they couldn't find some way of, I mean, maybe it was unfocusable, but you think at the time, they just didn't have the energy to deal with us, you know what I mean? It was just that thing of here come another year, here go another year, and if you get a couple of frisky kids, it pissed them off because it was going to make them work harder, so they didn't bother, you know. And that, if you look at what's actually come out of that, they had no idea there was any potential there. And so from my point of view, I did it off my own back. And there's lots of, the difference now is that there's lots of play, like here, some of the rooms I've been in, it seems like it's far more about actually getting in and doing things rather than sitting there and talking about it. I think that's the key with filmmaking, is some of the worst reviews you've had over the years, you actually sort of look into the people that have done it, you think, yeah, that's a really cruel review, and you find that they've made something themselves, and it can be the biggest crock of shit. A lot of them are failed filmmakers, you know, and it's like, and the level that they judge my work on, it's like, have a look at your own stuff before you like start pushing the finger around. And I think there's people that say and people that do, and I think, you know, the difference is there's no reason nowadays not to be able to get out and make films, because it's so much easier with computers and DV camcorders. It's like, if you can't make a film now, then you never can, you know.